Everyone, the March 26, 2024 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy is present. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is present. Chairman Mafucci.
Here.
Chairman Mafucci is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons is present. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson is present.
Legislators, will you please stand as Legislator Udelson will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Legislator Udelson. Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum?
I have one speaker signed up. I don't see her in the back. Dr. Michelle Wunderlich.
Okay, is there anyone present who would like to speak? No? Okay, great. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
All items on the agenda as one, with the exception of the following. Number 4, 0109, 0111, 0112, and 0116.
Motion moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Brew. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Item carried. Next item.
To be on referral 24-0109. Authorize the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at Betteridge Road in the town of Riga.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Mercedes Vasquez Simmons. Any discussion? None? All those in favor? Item carries.
Opposed.
Oh, any opposed? Didn't sound like it. Thank you. Next item.
Referral 24-0111. Authorize the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at Idle Lane, Rochester, New York, in the town of Brighton.
Moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Vasquez Simmons. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Referral 24-0112. Erroneous assessments, corrections, and cancellations.
Motion moved by Legislator Udelson, seconded by Legislator Baines. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Next item, motion carries. Next item.
Referral 24-0116. Commit unassigned fund balance for the specific purpose of studying the feasibility of a publicly owned utility in Monroe County. Authorize an intermunicipal agreement with the city of Rochester.
Motion moved by Legislator Vasquez Simmons, seconded by Legislator Baines. Any discussion? Legislator Brew.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to explain my vote. I rise in opposition to this legislation. While the intentions behind this proposal may be well-meaning, the consequences of such a move could have detrimental effects on our community and our economy. First and foremost, the concept of a public utility may seem appealing on the surface, promising lower rates and better service. However, history has shown us time and time again that the reality often falls short of these promises. Government-run utilities are notorious for inefficiency, bureaucratic red tape, and lack of innovation. This could ultimately lead to an increased cost and decreased reliability for consumers. Look no further than a nearby Long Island, where their public utility promised lower rates and better service and ended up with a 50% higher consumer bill in the first month and double the price per kilowatt today. Or in Maine, where voters overwhelmingly rejected a public utility by 68 to 32%, partly due to the $13.5 billion takeover price in the amount of $17,000 per taxpayer. Or in Boulder, Colorado, where the attempt for a public utility ended up back where they started with a private utility after a 10-year, $29 million legal battle. Furthermore, the prospect of a government control over our energy infrastructure raises serious concerns about political interference and lack of accountability. In a public utility model, decisions about rates, investments, and operations would be subject to the whims of politicians rather than market forces and consumer demand. This is not only jeopardizes the financial stability of the utility, but also undermines the principles of free enterprise and limited government. Additionally, let's not forget the significant financial burden that would be placed on taxpayers if such a takeover were to occur. Acquiring RG&E would require a substantial investment of public funds, estimated to be at a cost of at least $10.5 billion, which could be better spent on crime, infrastructure, or any of the pressing matters facing our community. To make matters worse, law requires that this money be taken in debt. Yes, that would mean an amount nearly 8 times the size of the current county budget that we would have to be indebted for. Moreover, the ongoing cost of maintaining and operating a public utility would inevitably lead to higher taxes and fees for residents and businesses alike. In conclusion, the realities of this proposal are catastrophic, swapping over $100 million in tax revenue for $10.5 billion in taxpayer debt, forcing 800 local employees out of their job, politicians in charge of your gas and electric, higher bills, and lesser service. That is why my Republican colleagues and I stand united against this proposal, why so many labor and business leaders stand united against this proposal, and why anyone who operates in reality stands against this. We must prioritize efficiency, innovation, and consumer choices in our energy sector rather than resorting to heavy-handed government intervention and control. I urge all legislators to soundly reject this proposal in the interest of protecting our taxpayers and our households. I yield the floor.
Other comments? Legislator
Yeah,
Calvin?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like also to explain my vote. RG&E and its parents' companies, their citizenship in our community has been brought into question by many speakers, and I would just like to address some of those issues. A quick review of their financial documents that are available online, Avangrid, and I'm sure Mr. Franklin could help me go through these in a little more detail, but reveal a company that's actually quite a good citizen of our community. Questions were raised about wait times and customer service. RG&E has presented data that indicate that those wait times are actually have been reduced and are actually quite acceptable. In addition, system-wide, and I wasn't able to find numbers breaking out RG&E in particular, but on $768 million of net income, almost $400 million in capital investment into the system. Substantial investments in renewable energy, employing thousands of workers. And in fact, even the Labor's International Union, Local 435, that represents the hardworking folks that work at RG&E, are opposed to this. And as Legislator Brew mentioned, billions of dollars in capital assets on the balance sheet, 33 billion system-wide, 10 billion locally, representing a unreasonable investment to try to untangle this. Additionally, I believe that if this study, even on the back of a napkin, were to indicate that it was a good idea, that these funds could be had elsewhere. So to ask the citizens of this county to pay for this is unreasonable, and I will be voting no and urge others to vote no as well. Thank you.
Other comments? Legislator Baines.
May I sit so this gets picked up on the microphone? All right, so I like to think we all live in reality, and I'm explaining my vote. And maybe we just have a different understanding of this process. In order for us to have a public utility, the voters, not 29 legislators of this county in a referendum will have to vote for one. And I, for one, trust the voters. And if it's what they want, who are we to say that they shouldn't have that opportunity? Secondly, my experience being a legislator is we spend other people's money. That's what we do. And it's certainly at times, I think we do so without really seeing a clear return on investment. So here we have $1 million that we're voting on today, and then we'll vote on before the full ledge. That's a lot of money. But we spend hundreds of millions of dollars as a legislature and often do not have clear outcomes for it. There are two significant outcomes from this $1 million. First is we will have a work product. By the way, that's if it passes the legislature, this study, if it's not vetoed, and if the request for proposal produces a qualified vendor who's able to do it for under 1.5 million, taking the $1 million from our funds and joining it with the 500,000 from the city of Rochester. If we do commission the study, there will be an empirical objective document that will be produced, and it will be available for and written for the voters of the county, the deciders of the issue. And I voted against this the first time it came up for two reasons. I voted against it because it didn't go to committee. Secondly, it had this advisory thing on it where we were going to put advocates into the process of the RFP. That's all been stripped out in the most recent version. But the second outcome of the study is where the ROI comes from. Because if you've been watching, and I appreciated Legislator Keller's data, and I think it's accurate, and that this company is trying to behave better. But I think that since this campaign was raised, we have seen a significant effort on part of RG&E to improve. And I think they respond. They're a power company, but they also are a company with power. They have a virtual monopoly on over 90% of the gas and electric in this county. So why are they going to get better if we don't hold them to account? So in my view, this is a straight business decision. This is not a public power. We're not deciding that we're going to have public power. We're going to study whether we're going to have public power, and the voters are going to decide that, by the way, after a number of other steps involving this body that would have to transpire. And it's my view that we're going to get tenfold in improvements to RG&E based on the fact that this study is at least being undertaken. And that is why I'm making the business decision to spend other people's money, $1 million, to get better service for the people of this community, and that's why I'm going to vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Udelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've tried to balance my personal opinion about this matter. I'm not in favor with my role as majority leader. In that role, I felt it was my responsibility to help the matter be considered by the full legislature at our That is the desire of most of our caucus members. Therefore, I requested, along with other people, that the EPW committee be designated as the lead committee. And as you know, last night, that committee approved the referral, and it will now go to the full legislature, no matter what the outcome of this committee's vote. Matter now assured to be discussed at the April meeting. Vote on the referral today, as that is my current position on the study. I'm speaking more about this matter at the April 9th.
Legislator Brew?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. After hearing some of the responses from my colleagues on the side, I'd just like to state that, yes, we are talking not so much about the study itself, although my remarks were generally focused against the prospects of an RG&E takeover. But let's just talk about the $1 million that we are asking the taxpayers to pony up for this study. I personally feel that this proposal, okay, proposing a study is so flawed on the surface by so many things, I consider it to be a total waste of taxpayer money. And I'm thinking of protection solely on the taxpayer. Let's not talk down the road or what might become of this, okay? When you think of this committee, yes, we have a county budget that's $1.4 billion, right? But do we want to think that this $1 million is only a small percentage of that? I think not. This is $1 million that we as legislators could allocate to go to any number of different things that we feel would be a benefit to this community. But when we consider funding this type of piece of legislation, okay, for this study, it is with that I say that with all the needs of this community and on the surface and how flawed this appears to be, I would just, again, just say a wholeheartedly no to this. And I would encourage my Democratic colleagues on the other side of the aisle to support me on this. Thank you.
Anyone would like to ask a question?
Mr. Chairman, to the maker of the motion, would you, the maker of the motion, like to offer your view as to why you made the motion?
There have been a lot of projections tonight about what might happen under public power, but I want to go over some facts that we have now. And until we have the study done, we don't know if it will cost our taxpayers more. We don't know if it will cost the county more. In Winter Park, Florida, after 6 years, it actually became revenue generating. These are some of the things that we would find out by doing a study. In addition, of the nation's 3,200 electricity providers, just over 2,000 are publicly owned utilities, serving 14.5% of all electricity consumers. Co-ops, 28% of the U.S. is served by a consumer-owned utility. 5 of the nation's 20 largest cities own their own electric utilities, including Los Angeles and Seattle. A total of 68 public power utilities were formed in the last 40 years. Overall, they are between 13 and 63% cheaper than investor-owned utilities, while being twice as reliable. So, it is possible that this could actually make things better for our constituents. I also wanted to speak to the item of debt. Many of our constituents are living in debt. A lot of that debt is RG&E related. Billing. It's being unable to reach customer service representatives. As far as, I'm not really sure where job loss numbers are coming from, but these jobs are going to have to be done regardless of whether it is a publicly owned utility or a corporate owned utility. If we flip the script and imagine that we had public power now and someone was coming in and trying to take over it, it would be called a corporate takeover. And so I would ask folks to be a little bit creative in thinking about who should own our utilities, who should own our infrastructure.
Any other comments? I made my comments last night at a committee meeting, so I won't burden anybody with those again. My instinct says that we need to do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes yes. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy votes yes. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes no. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes no. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes no. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes no. Ms. Smith. Smith votes no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes yes. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes no. Chairman Mafucci.
Yes.
Chairman Fucci votes no, or votes yes. 5-6, referral fails.
And the term, but doesn't the president of the legislature have a vote?
President Roman. You do have a vote if you would like. Sure. Ms. Barnhart voted yes. Mr. Baines voted yes. Ms. Bartholomew McCoy voted yes. Mr. Brew voted no. Mr. Colby voted no. Mr. Dondorfer voted no. Mr. Keller voted no. Ms. Smith voted no. Ms. Vasquez Simmons voted yes. Mr. Udelson voted no. Chairman Mafucci voted yes. President Rahman voted yes. 6-6, referral also fails.
Thank you, Legislator Baines. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? Being none, there being no other matters, the March 26, 2024 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m.